Psychological tranquility. Without limits being established for relations between men and women, or with unlimited free associations, sexual excitement and stimulation increase, and demands become unquenchable and insatiable. The sexual instinct is a powerful, deep-rooted instinct which resembles the fathomless ocean. Although one thinks that by obeying it one will have tamed it, its rebellious nature continues to show forth. It is like a fire. The more fuel is added to it, the greater would be its flame. In order to comprehend this, 2 points should be noted. Firstly, just as history recalls those who coveted wealth, who were continuously seeking to add to what they already had, and however much more they gained, they were still greedy for more. It also mentions those who were covetous for sexual pleasures. In no way were they satisfied by possessing beautiful women and dominating over them. This was the situation of all those who had harems, and, in truth, all those who had the power to possess women. Christensen writes about the Sasanian rulers. The women we see carved into stone at Taqi Bustan are only a few of the 3,000 women Khosrow Parviz possessed in his harem. This king was never satisfied sexually. Whenever girls, widows, or women with children were presented to him for their beauty, he would order that they be sent to his harem. Whenever he desired to replenish his harem, he would write letters to his governors, wherein he would describe the perfect and beautiful woman he wanted. They then would send him any woman who fit his description. Stories like this are endless in history. In most recent times, this greed does not take the form of harems, but exists in another form, with the difference that today it is not necessary for a person to have the wealth and possibilities that Khosrow Parviz or Harun al-Rashid had. Today, with the blessing of contemporary culture, it is possible for a man who only has 1/1000 of the possibilities of Parviz or Harun to take advantage of women. Secondly, have you ever considered what the desire to serenade or write love poems stems from in humanity? A large part of world literature is filled with love poems. In this type of literature, a man praises his beloved, asks for his needs to be satisfied by the beloved, raises the position of the beloved as he lowers his own status and suffers greatly from separation. What is this? Why does humanity not behave in the same way towards other needs? Have you ever seen a person who worships money, or a person who is ambitious for higher material positions, writing love poems on money or on ambition? Has anyone ever written a love poem asking for bread? Why is it that people enjoy listening to or reading the love poems of another? Why is it that so many people receive such pleasure from hafizes love poems? Is it not because each person senses that it conforms to some very deep instinct which possesses their whole being? How mistaken are those who say that the one and only reason which forms the basis for human activity is an economic one. Human beings have developed special literary rhythmic forms to express sexual love, just as they have done with spiritualities, whereas no special literary rhythmic forms have been developed for things which are essentially material, like bread and water. We do not want to insinuate that all loves are sexual, nor do we mean to imply that all of Hafiz's or Saadi's poem stem from their sexual instinct. This is something which needs to be discussed separately at another time. But what is clear is that many of the love poems are ones written by men in devotion to women. It is sufficient for us to recognize that a man's attention towards a woman is not based on bread and water, so that it can be satiated when the stomach is full. Rather, it either takes the form of greed and worship of variety and multiplicity, or the form of love and love poems. We will later discuss under what conditions the state of greed and sexual covetousness is strengthened, and under what conditions love and love poems assume a spiritual quality. At any rate, Islam has placed special emphasis upon the amazing power of this fiery instinct. There are traditions which speak of the danger of a quote-unquote look, the danger of a man and woman being alone together, and finally, the danger of the instinct which unites a man and a woman. Islam has established ways of controlling, balancing, and taming the instinct. Duties have been given to both men and women in this area. One duty, which is the responsibility of both men and women, relates to looking at each other. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Say to the believing men to cast down their glance and guard their private parts. Chapter 24, verse 30. And Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Say to the believing women to cast down their glance and guard their private parts. Chapter 24, verse 31. In summary, the command is that a man and a woman should not fix their eyes upon each other. They should not flirt with each other. They should not look at each other with lust or with the intention of seeking sexual pleasure, unless it is within the sacred bounds of marriage. Islam has established a particular command for a woman, which is that she covers her body from a man with whom she is not mahram, and that she should not flaunt herself or put her body on display in society. She is asked not to stimulate the attention of men by any means. The human soul readily accepts stimulation. It is great error to think that sexual desires of humanity are limited in extent and that after a certain point are naturally satisfied. Just as the human being, man or woman, is never satiated with wealth or position and is continuously seeking more, in the area of sexual desires, it is the same. No man is ever naturally satisfied by beauty, and no woman is ever naturally satisfied by a man's attention and the conquest of his heart. Clearly, the desires of the heart are never satiated. On the other hand, unlimited demands are never fulfilled, and the sense of deprivation is continuously felt. Not achieving one's desires results in psychological illnesses and complexes. Why is it that in the West, psychological illnesses have increased? The reason is freedom of sexual ethics and continuous sexual stimulation through the newspapers, magazines, cinemas, theaters, and official and unofficial parties, and even the streets and alleys. The reason why the Islamic command to cover is exclusive to women is because the desire to show off and display oneself is a particular trait of women. She is the hunter in the dominion of the hearts of men, and man is the prey, whereas man is the hunter in the dominion of the body of women, and she is the prey. A woman's desire to display herself comes from this essence of the hunter. It is the female instinct which, because of its particular nature, wishes to capture hearts and imprison the male. Thus, the deviation begins with the female instinct, and therefore the command to cover was issued. Solidifying the root of the family. There is no doubt that anything which confirms the roots of the family and increases the perception of marital relations is good for the family unit. The greatest efforts must be made to have this happen. The opposite is also true. Anything which causes the relationship between a husband and wife to grow cold is detrimental to a family and must be struggled against. Finding the fulfillment of sexual desires within the family environment and within the framework of a legal marriage will strengthen the relationship between a husband and wife, causing their union to become more stable. The philosophy of the modest dress and the control of sexual desires other than with a legal wife, from the point of view of the family unit, is so that one legal partner will be the cause for the well-being of the other. Whereas in the system of free sexual relationships, one legal partner is psychologically considered as a competitor, someone who gets in the way of that person's quote-unquote fun, like a prison guard. As a result, the basis for the family becomes enmity and hatred. The youth of today have fled from marriage, and whenever marriage is suggested to them, they say, "It is too soon. I am still too young, or give some other excuse because of this very reason. In the past, one of the greatest desires of the young people was to get married. They were not so particular before about the blessings of Europe, which introduced so many women as goods. Marriage in the past was undertaken after a time of anticipation and wishful thinking. For this very reason, the partners saw their happiness and well-being in their partner. But today, sexual desires are so freely satisfied outside of marriage that there is no longer any reason to have the former feelings. Free relationships of girls and boys have made marriage look like a duty and a limitation to them. It then becomes necessary to speak to them about ethics, morals, etc. As some magazines suggest, it must be forced upon the young people. The difference between the society which limits sexual relations to the family environment and the legal marriage with a society which promotes free relationships is that marriage in the first society is the end to the anticipation and deprivation, whereas in the latter, it is the beginning of deprivation and limitation. In the system of free sexual relationships, the marriage contract ends the free period of boys and girls, and it obliges them to learn to be loyal to each other. Whereas in the Islamic system, their deprivation and anticipation is met. The system of free relationships, in the first place, causes boys to become soldiers of fortune because of marriage and the formation of a family, and not until their high young spirits tend to become weak do they turn to marriage. Then a girl is taken because she will bear children, or clean the house, or act as a maid. In the second place, it weakens the roots of the existing marriage. Instead of the marriage being based upon a pure love and deep affection, where they know their partner to be the person who shares in their happiness, the reverse happens. They look at their partner with the eyes of a competitor, as a person who prevents freedom and brings limitations. As they say, each one becomes the other's prison guard. When a boy or girl want to say, "I am married," they say instead, "I have taken on a prison guard." What does this mean? This means that before marriage, they were free to go wherever they wanted to flirt. There was no one to tell them what to do. But after marriage, these freedoms were limited. If a man goes home late one night, there will be an argument with his partner. "Where were you?" If he talks with a young girl, his wife objects. It is clear to what extent family relations become weakened and cold in such a system. Some people, like Bertrand Russell, believe that the prevention of free relationships is not just for the certainty of men in relationship to future generations, because methods of birth control have been developed to solve this difficulty. Thus, the issue is not just the knowledge of who the father is. The other issue is that the purest of emotions exist between the marriage partners, and the relationship should be based on unity and solidarity. These goals can only be met when the partners close their eyes to each other, to other relationships. When the man closes his eyes to other women. When the wife is not bent on stimulating and attracting anyone but her husband. And when the principle of forbidding the satisfaction of sexual desires outside of the family, even before marriage, exists. In addition, when the woman who has progressed following Russell and people like him, and in accordance with the new sexual ethics, still seeks her love in another in spite of having a legal husband. When she sleeps with a man who has become the love of her life, what assurance is there that she will take preventing measures with the man who is her legal husband, whom she does not love and not get pregnant by the man she now loves, and then claims her legal husband to be the father of the child? It is clear that such a woman will prefer to have her child be the product of the man she now loves, not of the man who the law says is her legal husband, and the only person by whom she should have children. It is natural that a man should have children by a woman who loves him, and not by a woman who is forced upon him by the law. Europe has clearly shown that the statistics for illegitimate children has risen at an alarming rate, despite the modern means for preventing pregnancy.